The story of Arknights and Monster Hunter collaboration event takes place in a remote area in the Subo mountain range in Higashi. We see an old hunter in the middle of the forest, who has been tracking a dangerous beast for the last 3 days. The hunter seems to be hallucinating, constantly talking to someone inside his mind, saying that he will avenge whoever that person is by killing the beast. After some time, the hunter managed to find his quarry, surprisingly injured. The hunter wonders what would have made the beast like this. Nevertheless, the hunter prepared himself to kill the beast. After killing the beast, his old body fell to the ground. Then he sees a flash of lightning up above the sky, revealing a mysterious flying creature with fire blazing in its mouth. Most certainly the creature who wounded the beast. The hunter trembles, but is determined to hunt that flying creature for the sake of the mysterious person. The story shifts to Operator Yato and Noir Corn. A village called Roca has reported an oripathy outbreak and seek Rhodes Island to help with the situation. So both were sent here to investigate, starting with a survey of the local environment. Nothing unusual until they found a massive claw mark on the ground. After running some tests, they got a positive active originium particle from the scratches and wonder what kind of creature they're dealing with. All of a sudden, they are approached by 2 feline-looking creatures, telling them it was left by a creature called Rathalos and warn them of its arrival. Suddenly, the creature known as Rathalos hovers above them and begin to attack the duo. Rathalos's sheer force and fiery breath proved that the 2 veteran operators are no match against it. Not even their weapons can cut it. In the end, Yato was badly injured by Rathalos' talon and fainted. Luckily, the 2 creatures from before come in with a makeshift cart to get the duo out. But Noir is skeptical, so the yellow one, being the most chaotic between the 2, gives Noir a physical anesthetic and get him on the cart with Yato. After escaping Rathalos, Noir wakes up and learns more about the 2 creatures. They are called the felines. The white one is a scholar, hailing from Burna village and former royal paleontology scriveners, who was on a journey to the New World, and met the yellow feline along the way, who is an artisan from Poki village. The 2 seem to believe they are in the New World. Little did they know they are in a completely different world. The scholar then asks if Noir got any herbs or antidote to treat Yato, since the duo doesn't have any. The felines decided to go to the nearest village to seek help and tells the duo to rest. But shortly, despite Noir's protest, Yato decided they should go to Roca village to warn the inhabitants about their findings. Meanwhile, we see the felines now in the Roca village. The scholar sees something very odd. The people here don't look like a human or Wyverian. There's not a single hunter in sight or gathering hub to deal with monsters. Here, the scholar realizes that they might be not in the New World. And the scholar remembers how the scholar and Smithy stumble upon a strange light, probably something that takes them into this place. But while Scholar is talking, Smithy runs off somewhere, and have picked up the villagers' stuff without permission, resulting in them getting chased by some villagers. Shortly, Noir and Yato arrived at the village, first seeking help to treat Yato's wound and poison from Rathalos. They are helped by a kid named Kazuya. He led them to a hut on the outskirts of the village, belonging to the village hunter called Yoshitaka Kashiwao, who can treat wound and poison from the wild beast inside the forest. He says Kashiwao is an amazing hunter who even builds netting around the village to protect it against animals from the forest. However, he seems to be out of his house, but Kazuya tells them they can go inside as Kashiwao will surely not mind. Then Noir opens the door, only to get his head hit with a hammer by Smithy. The felines were hiding here from the villagers and are surprised to see them here. And wasting no time, the scholar prepares an antidote with ingredients the scholar found in this hut for Yato. And with the antidote, Yato finally gets better. The scholar also confirms some things with Noir. The felines are indeed teleported to Terra through unknown means, and now they must find a way to go back home. Shortly, Kashiwao enters the house, and let Yato and the others stay after learning what happened. Yato then tells the felines that Rhodes Island could help them, or at least offer them shelter for the time being. In exchange, the felines will help them take care of Rathalos. Upon hearing Yato's description of Rathalos, Kashiwao realizes she was talking about the flying creature he saw, and tells Yato that Rathalos is his quarry, and only he is allowed to hunt Rathalos without giving any reason. So despite the old man's protest, Yato still determined she and Noir to take care of the monster, and she and the others leave before things start to escalate. Yato and Noir then meet with the village chief Ataru Taki. Yato explains about Rathalos and the possibility that it has ties with the recent oripathy outbreak. So she advises the villagers to evacuate until the matter is resolved. But the chief is hesitant because they lack evidence. He explains that the village was once so poor and relied on hunting. But a few years ago, ever since they switched to selling an expensive herb called Suzuka that only grows near the area and sells their handicraft and ironware, the village manages to thrive, and no one needs to risk their life hunting anymore. And no way the villagers will abandon their home over some vague hunch. Yato is getting furious because the chief doesn't make the village's safety his priority. But Noir calmed things down and says they will perform a checkup for the village infected. Before the duo leaves, Noir asks if there's no need for hunting anymore. Then what about Kashiwao? The chief says he's just some reclusive sort, and advised the duo to stay away as his personality might give them trouble. Outside, the duo is certain there's something fishy with the chief, but they must focus on their main objective: investigate the oripathy outbreak and protect this people. The next day, Kashiwao starts his expedition to hunt Rathalos. On his way out, he can see Yato and Noir are currently examining the villagers. They finally got a clue to the source of the outbreak after taking care of a boy with acute oripathy. The boy says his father often went into a cave, and some time ago there was an explosion in the cave, and his father went to check it out under the chief's order. Upon his return, he caught a severe oripathy and said there is a giant creature inside. But the chief said he was lying and took him somewhere, believing the cave to be the source of the outbreak, and Rathalos might be in there. Yato asks the villagers about the cave location. They all hesitate, until a man called Hiroshi tells them the location of the cave. He doesn't know what's in there, and the cave is currently closed. But some villagers have been working there under the chief's order. Yato and Noir then go to check the cave, but it is guarded. Luckily, the felines know what they're going to do and decide to help distract the guards with some food. The duo then enters the cave, followed by the felines shortly after. The cave's condition implies that Rathalos have been here before, and they found a big piece of meat, which seemed to have been placed by someone to lure something. Then all of a sudden, infected creatures poured into their position, lured by the meat. There are too many of them, so they have no choice but to escape. Using explosives they got, they blew up the ceiling to create an exit, and used the rest to make a cave-in to trap those creatures. They managed to escape, and think that someone from the village lured the monsters to eliminate them. Nevertheless, they must continue with the investigation. The source of the outbreak and Rathalos are connected with the cave, and they might find something at the cave endpoint. But since it will be difficult to find, Noir suggests they find Rathalos first, and it might lead them there. But before starting the quest, the felines suggest they rest and fill their stomach first with leftover food from before. The story shifts to the chief and Hiroshi. They know that Rathalos has been spotted in the cave, and there's a secret within the cave that they don't want originium experts like Rhodes Island to know, since the duo were prying too much. Hiroshi planned to eliminate them by luring Rathalos or other beasts to them, and if the duo can actually defeat it, they'll benefit since the threat is gone, and he can easily silence them after they get exhausted. But they're informed that there's an explosion inside the cave and the entrance is blocked, and unsure with the fate of the Rhodes Islander. Then we see our protagonists following Rathalos' tracks, and the felines simultaneously observe everything about this world. Scholar realizes Terra and the world where they came from are not so different. With the scholar's knowledge, Scholar will surely become the top ecological researcher in this world. But Noir cuts in and says to become an ecological researcher here, there's originium and catastrophe to consider. Suddenly, the chaotic Smithy comes back to the group after stealing Stinkfowl's eggs and giving some of it to Noir. The birds think Noir is the one who stole the eggs and begin to attack him, leaving him with a strong, unpleasant smell. Shortly, the group notices a herd of hornbeast are rushing towards them. They manage to climb a tree to avoid the stampede, but they can't continue their investigation like this. So Scholar says they'll need to lure the lead using a dung bomb Smithy made from the stink fowl. But they need to get very close, and the smell might catch the shooter. Noir chooses to sacrifice himself and manages to lure the herd away. But now he needs some serious bath. Later, because of the stampede, they lost Rathalos' tracks and are now walking in circle. Luckily, they find a carving in one of the trees made by someone named Mirai, saying to follow the trail of the wind, and so they followed the advice and finally got out of the forest, where they see a lake and an old campsite nearby. They decided to rest for a while in the camp, and realized it was the camp used by the village hunters years ago. They also found a unique spear with the owner's name on it, Akira Kashiwao, most likely the relative of the old hunter. Noir also found an old photograph, a photo of the village hunters gathering from 9 years ago. But Noir finds it weird that the old Kashiwao is nowhere in the photo. Yato then gets a bit angry since Noir is always distracting himself with something unrelated to the mission. Noir apologizes and says he can't help thinking about the old hunter. Things he said, stubbornness, facing everything alone, reminds Noir of a certain someone. One failed barbecue later, it's revealed that Scholar has told Smithy to work on new equipment for Yato and Noir to take down Rathalos, using materials that Smithy brought and some of Terra's materials as a substitute. Shortly, we see old man Kashiwao approaching the campsite. Apparently, he had been using this campsite, and the old man recalls his past. It's revealed the person who always appears inside his mind is Akira, his one and only son who passed away in his encounters with the wild beasts. His son's death haunted him, and now he aims to eliminate all the dangerous beasts inside the forest for Akira's sake, and his next target is Rathalos. Knowing his presence, the group approaches Kashiwao. The old hunter is furious since the group is still after Rathalos even after his warning. Just as things are about to escalate, a mysterious feline comes out of nowhere and warns them that the campfire has caught Rathalos' attention and it will soon arrive. And Rathalos did arrive. Upon closer look, they realizes there are some originium clusters covering its body. Despite having new equipment, the duo still has a hard time fighting Rathalos, not to mention Kashiwao refusing to work together. Luckily, the exotic-looking feline who is revealed to be a palico, a title given to the feline who accompany hunters in their world, assist them by fighting the Rathalos and giving the duo useful tips. But this Rathalos is somehow so unpredictable. His fire attacks also more destructive thanks to the originium dust covering his body. In the end, Yato got injured by the monster's tailspin, and Rathalos escapes into the sky while Noir and Scholar are stuck on his back. Rathalos brought them into a cave, where they finally managed to let go of the monster. And it seems the cave is the endpoint that they're looking for. Noir realizes that this place is an originium mine. This could explain why the villagers are trying so hard to hide it. Considering Higashi's unstable politics and dwindling resources, this secret originium mine could bring the villagers a pile of cash. But if the officials were to find out about this, the mine would be taken over and the villagers' lives might be in danger. The scholar is confused as to why the people of Terra are so easy to mine originium, since Noir once told them it can cause an incurable disease and might lead to other disasters. But after some explanation, the scholar realized Terra's technology and its civilization is built on a foundation of originium. Furthermore, Noir makes an example that only energy from originium can move nomadic cities, where the majority of people lived and used to avoid catastrophe. The scholar also explains the similarities in their world. Materials used to forge weapons to take the fiercest beasts likewise comes from a fierce beast, and there are numerous cases of hunters never returning from their hunts. Then suddenly they heard a woman's voice from somewhere, asking if the two can help her out. Shifting to Yato's side, she listens to Palico's side of the story. The hunter that the Palico had been following with had accepted a commission to obtain Rathalos Ruby, and when the Palico was trying to catch up to the monster, the Palico and Rathalos were swept away by a strange force and ended up in this world. And according to the Palico's observation, the monster has been using a cave as its nest and has been acting strange ever since it entered. Yato thinks the cave must be connected with the one near the village, and then asked the seasoned Palico how to effectively hunt down Rathalos. The Palico said this particular Rathalos behavior is abnormal, so the usual strategy might not work, and they don't have any flash bomb or shock trap to bring it down from the sky and trap it. The Palico, however, can give Yato some tips to use her new weapon more efficiently, but the Palico asks whether hunting Rathalos is necessary. Back in their world, maintaining a balanced ecosystem is very important. Hunting of any kind will have an effect, and the consequences must be considered. Rathalos' activity is quite far from any village, and it does not pose any significant threat to the villagers. Moreover, the forest that Rathalos inhabit is overpopulated with herbivores, so Rathalos' presence to hunt them down can be considered a positive. Then Yato replies that hunting Rathalos was never her mission to begin with. If they can find the source of the outbreak and ensure the village safety, Rathalos' fate is irrelevant. Upon hearing this, Kashiwao got angry and threatened Yato with his spear, but Yato taunts him that he won't do it. Yato realizes that his hunt on Rathalos is based on his personal obsession. Yato guessed that Akira was his son, and that he once went on a hunt against the old man's advice and was never returned. Since then, Kashiwao has been feeling guilty and venting his frustration on the hunt. She says she understands his feelings and says don't let the past impair his judgment. Kashiwao calms down a little bit, but he is still trembling. What Yato said is not far from the truth. Akira passed away 7 years ago. He went to take care of beasts that were rampaging near the village alone, but he was heavily outnumbered and resulted in him becoming a prey to a great number of beasts. Meanwhile, Palico notices the old man's trembling fingers are moving towards a trigger on the spear that would eject the spearhead toward Yato. The Palico tries to disarm him, but Kashiwao accidentally hits the trigger, and the spearhead hit Yato's foot. Despite Yato's assurance, the old man panicked and ran into the woods. Back to Noir and the scholar, they free the woman, who reveals herself to be Mirai Taki, the niece of the village chief and the same Mirai who left instruction from before. She's an ecology researcher who snuck into the mine to perform a survey, but got stuck in a room for 3 days that was not even blocked. Luckily, this lass came prepared. It's revealed that she's been here even before Rathalos came to the cave 4 days ago and put the mining in halt, and managed to observe the creature. Rathalos has been making a nest inside a volcano, and the place appears to have become an active originium zone, while it appears to have not contracted oripathy. Rathalos' whole body was covered by originium clusters, causing it to become a giant flying oripathy spreader. Mirai also said she had planned to collapse the whole mine with explosives, not only to kill Rathalos, but also to close the mine for good, because the villagers have been overmined the whole place without even using a standard procedure. If there's a significant active originium particles leakage to the volcano, catastrophe is inevitable. Sadly, the villagers are blinded by the wealth that the mine brought, and confiscated her external communication to prevent her telling outsiders, so knowing her uncle won't let the villagers not having any oripathy treatment. She left Rhodes Island contact to her uncle, in the hope that Rhodes Islander will also help her with the mine situation. Shifting to Yato because of Rathalos' tailspin, Yato performed emergency surgery to pull out foreign objects from her thigh. Then all of a sudden, the beasts in the forest started to rampage. It's a sign of the beginning of a catastrophe, and they seem to be harming the village. So first Yato went to find Kashiwao. In the forest, Kashiwao is surrounded by some beast. He thinks about his son, and seems to have decided to give up. But luckily, the Palico and Yato come in. Yato encourages the old man to abandon his obsession and guilt, and do his duty as the village's last hunter to protect the village. Amazed by her words and determination, Kashiwao wields his spear and makes peace with Akira's death. Then they work together to take care of the beast. While all of this is happening, Noir's group went deeper into the cave. Mirai reveals that the mining was done by massacring the species of Armaclaw beast who once lived inside the cave, and the surviving beast went into a rampage. None of it would happen if her uncle and other villagers listened to Akira, but Akira, who was against the mining, still helped the villagers take care of the beast. But we all know it didn't end well. She also mentioned that her uncle was Akira's mentor and friend, and has been deeply pained by his death. After that, the group spotted Rathalos down below, currently resting, but the scholar accidentally dropped a binocular, hitting Rathalos, and makes it enraged. The furious monster then breathes out a massive fire that triggers the originium particles in the volcano, creating a big explosion, and finally, a firestorm catastrophe. Miraculously, the trio survives, and shortly they reunite with Yato and the others. Luckily, the firestorm moves pretty slowly, so there should be enough time to evacuate the villagers. But the rampaging beast and Rathalos might attack the village, so they must get there ASAP. Mirai prepares an old rail car that they could use to reach the village faster. While preparing, Kashiwao asks what Yato meant when she said she understood him. Yato says she was once very stubborn and often not listening to other people, and reveals that she once worked as an assassin. On her mission to eliminate a mother and daughter, she had enough and decided to spare their lives. But only later did she realize that sparing them wasn't enough, because other assassins will surely come after them. So Yato has been feeling guilty about it. But Noir encouraged her to make up for her past sins with the future, and to make it her mission to protect others from here onward. Sometime later, we see Roca village is in chaos. There's still time before the catastrophe hit, but the rampaging beast is already here, because someone deliberately destroyed the netting that Kashiwao built. Meanwhile, the chief is telling people to evacuate to the shelter and only take a bare minimum. But almost everyone is hesitant to leave their wealth behind. Some even say they would rather die than go back to a life of poverty, since now the mine is destroyed. To make matters worse, Hiroshi asks why the hell there's a shelter that other villagers do not know about, and trying to slander the chief. But in return, the chief reveals Hiroshi has been taking more profit than he should from the ore transaction. The chief also says he wanted to close the mine for a long time. He knew if their overexploitation of the mine continued, it would lead to a catastrophe. So he planned the shelter, but the disaster came a little sooner. Mirai also comes in to convince the people that they can make a living by doing other things. With her research, she found a way to cultivate Suzuka herbs outside of its native area. But for some reason, Hiroshi still wants to argue, until Yato knocks him out and reveals he's the one who destroyed the netting, to distract the people while his men moved his shady assets. The chief then asked Yato to ensure the evacuation ran smoothly, while he will take care of the rampaging beast. Some other villagers who were once a hunter also join in. Later, while they're taking care of the beast together, it's revealed that Kashiwao wasn't yet a hunter until Akira passed away. The chief also says that no one abandoned Akira, but the man chooses to sacrifice himself by luring the rampaging beast away from the village. Despite Akira's protest against the mining activity, he also realizes the value of originium. It would become an opportunity for the village's brighter future. Akira also said he's sorry for acting against his father's will. Kashiwao says he already knows about Akira's sacrifice and says he misses him. But now there's another important task to clear. Rathalos can be seen approaching the village and sees the people as a threat, so Kashiwao chases the monster and fights it alone. He managed to injure Rathalos, but his old body is exhausted. As Rathalos is about to attack the old hunter, Kazuya distracts the monster with his bow. Then Rhodes Islander and the Palico come to the rescue. Time for the new generation to take over. With their experience with the new equipment, they manage to rival Rathalos, and Noir manages to cut its tail. But then Rathalos goes airborne, and there's no way to knock it out of the sky. Luckily, Smithy manages to create an improvised flash bomb and use it to take Rathalos down. While the monster is dazed, Yato uses this chance to cut Rathalos with a mid-air blade dance. Now that Rathalos is heavily wounded, the Palico binds the monster. After seeing the destruction that Rathalos made in this world, the Palico let the people of Terra decide whether to finish it off or not. Yato was about to kill it, but Scholar and Noir interfere. With Mirai's observation notes, the scholar deduced that originium clusters on Rathalos's body were making it more aggressive. It initially doesn't attack people deliberately, and its temperament is simply the product of its resistance against originium. As long as the big guy doesn't use an originium zone as its nest, it won't spread originium dust anymore. And they need not worry about this Rathalos any longer, since it's already on the brink of death. So with that, Yato decided to spare Rathalos and let it free. It doesn't attack and then fly away. But there was still a threat of a catastrophe, so the group went to help with evacuation. Half a month later, it's revealed that Old Man Kashiwao got into a coma, but he's getting better. The people of Roca village have rebuilt somewhere safe, thanks to money they saved and the money they got back from Hiroshi. But there's a question on what should the villagers do to make a living now, especially since Mirai lied about cultivating Suzuka herb. But Mirai persuade her uncle and other villagers to use their experience in originium industry, to work in other originium mining project. With the help of her expertise, they could work in a better procedure, to avoid making the same mistakes like before. And once the village situation improved, Mirai says she could continue her research to cultivate Suzuka herb outside of its habitat. Meanwhile, Yato and Noir are going back to Rhodes Island, but they take a detour to see the remains of the Roca village and see Rathalos for the last time. Noir also mentioned that the felines are now integrated to Rhodes Island, under the name Terra Research Commission, with the Scholar claiming to be its leader. It seems Smithy and Scholar are so fascinated by this world that they forgot their objective to return back home. Then they see the King of the Skies flying above them. Sooner or later, the majestic being will fall. While Yato is gazing towards the sky, Noir's gaze falls to Yato's fingertips. But as he's about to reach it, Yato noticed, and he started acting clumsy. And the last bit of the story is about the story that Mirai tells to some kids, about the village hunter and Rathalos, which could imply the future of Roca village. Many years passed, many houses have been built, and the forest has healed. And there's a new generation of hunter who stands where the old hunter once stand, facing the monster born anew. Well, that's all for Monster Hunter Collaboration Story. Hope this helped you to understand the story if you don't have time to read it in-game. And tell me what you think about the story in the comment. That should be all. Adios.